Coveted Consultant. Welcome to this week's Facebook Live. And looks like folks are already here. Ibrahim is here. Um, so what are we doing? Why do we make these videos? Why do we have these things? Why are we live, etc.? Well, I created a Facebook group called Marketing Leaders Lab. And that Facebook group is a place where we are talking about the business building conversation. So you don't just run a business, you live a life. And if you want those two things to work in conjunction, then there's some work that you need to do. There's some design that you have to do so that you can run a business effectively that takes you where you want to go in your life. And that's a thing. It requires intentional effort. It requires preparation. It requires, frankly, an attitude above and beyond the marketing hack of the day. So I'm not interested in the latest trends and tricks and tips and tools. Who cares? Who cares? Your clients need help. Your clients need help solving problems. And your job is to build a business that helps that client resolve that problem or that takes that pain away from that client. Your job is to build a business that solves the client's problem. And so if you'll focus on that, to focus on the business building work, right? Offering the right services to the right people, delivering them in the right way, all that design work. If you do that part, then your life takes on the shape you want it to take and you attract the kind of clients that are most exciting. And this can feel kind of heady, but this has nothing to do with headline tricks, video tactics, blah 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 blah. And actually, today I'm gonna play that out here. So today I'm talking about conquering the fear of selling. And this actually was a phrase that someone said to me just a few days ago. A lady joined the program and she used that phrase, and it triggered something for me because I know it's a truth point. It's something that people aggressively deal with. It's real for people. So today we're going to talk about conquering the fear of selling and what you need to do. Now, warning, warning. Today I have no hacks. I have no hacks. I have no tricks. I have no silver bullet magic. So I don't have any of that. So if you're looking forward to the one thing you got to do to master your confidence in selling, it's not here. Close out. Enjoy your day. Go do anything else besides be here. Today we're talking about an approach, how you should think about selling so that you can actually sell what you want to sell in the appropriate way where nobody feels yucky on either end. It's the reality of what it means to sell things. So people are here. Did I say hello? Joel is here. Hello to you, Joel. Emily is here. Excellent. And so, all right, we're gonna get to work here. So again, today, conquering the fear of selling. So let's talk about first of all what that fear looks like for you, right? So here's what happens. Here's the first thing people do when they have a fear of selling, because you may not say it out loud, right? The lady I'm talking about, she was very self-aware. She was very honest, and so she said out loud she has some apprehension. She has some fear around selling. So what do when you've got a fear, when you don't verbalize it, but you feel it? What do you do? So one thing you do is you freeze. You literally do nothing. And the hope is if you just stay still and don't say anything about it and don't mention it, it'll go away. I want to sell if I don't move. If I don't move and don't change anything, I want to sell. Just everybody just be still. It'll resolve itself. You see how crazy I look right now? That's how crazy that idea is. Sell it. If you are in business offering services to people, selling is part of the mechanic. It's part of what has to happen in order for your business to stay afloat. So just sitting still and hoping that it resolves itself, bogus. Let's move on. Let's move on. Here's the second thing you do. Here's the second thing you do. The second thing you do is you keep clicking. So this is the person who is constantly on social media, clicking yet another link to go to yet another place. So this is the forum posts you keep getting sucked into. It's the online trainings you keep getting sucked into watching. These are the blog posts that you keep getting sucked into reading. There's always another expert of the day with another hack or trick, right? And here you are again, sucked into, right? You keep clicking around the web, right? You click into some other thing that you can read, watch, or intake. And really, so you call this learning, right? That's why learn is there. So you justify this activity and you call it, well, I'm learning. I'm learning how to build my business. I'm learning how to sell better. I'm learning. Truthfully, what's happening here is you're waiting and you're hoping for someone to come along and give you the single thing that you're missing. You're hoping that somebody will come along and offer you a method where no sales are needed. Somebody will offer you a sales funnel that sells on autopilot. You're hoping for one of those. You know it doesn't exist. The real person in you knows it doesn't exist. But hey, Lynn, but the but there you are, clicking away, hoping that you'll learn something phenomenal and new, right? Okay. Someone had a comment here. Let me see. All right. So here's what Joel says. So Joel pops in, right? Joel says, I'm not afraid of selling. I think I do okay. But my problem is going out and discovering new clients and knocking on new doors. My niche is in the medical field, etc., doctors, etc. All right. So, well, Joel, if you're not afraid of selling, because that's what you just responded to, what's the follow-up here? So my problem is going out and discovering new clients. Like, you don't want to do it. You don't know how to do it. What are you asking there? Just a question, Joel. You can respond or not. So, um, because I think, yeah, because someone's like you, Joel. There's someone else who's watching this content now, either live or in the replay, and they're saying what you're saying. So let's have that dialogue if appropriate. In the meantime, I'll keep moving. All right. So you keep clicking, right? That's what you do. Okay. So then let's go one more. Let's go one more. So this is the next thing you do, right? Is you scope creep. You scope creep. What do I mean? So you've got these existing clients in your business and you serve the heck out of them. You make more suggestions, you offer more ongoing services. You make 30 more edits to their copy, 40 more edits to their website. You make 90 more suggestions on what they could do. You distract yourself with your current client base. You give yourself more reasons to do more things for the clients who currently exist inside your business. You get mad because you got all these new tasks that you invented. You get mad because you have all these new tasks and you call it scope creep. When truly the scope creep issue is your issue because you're afraid to sell. You're afraid to go out and prospect. It's awkward for you. So, right? So these are the coping behaviors of those who are afraid to sell. Let's keep going. All right, there's another. So Joel says, let's see what Joel says, everybody. So Joel says, all of my clients, I get the referrals. So going out and finding new clients is a bit new to me. So yes, I'm not sure how to get new clients. Got it, Joel. Got it. So, um, so not knowing how or not having a how is a matter of process, right? And so I'll come back and address that. So I stay with the current agenda that I have. But I got you, sir. Appreciate you. Thank you for having the courage to ask the follow-up question, right? So for those folks, which might be you, who are afraid of selling, here's the next behavior that shows up. Is you develop more services. So you got your existing clients, you got your existing offerings, right? And then you decide on your own to develop some more services. Or, we should sell this too. We should sell that too. We should offer a second, a third, a fourth, a fifth. We should offer a 92nd, 104th. You make up these additional services. Really, what you're doing, because you're inventing more things, right? That's really what's happening here. It's all avoidance, everybody. It's avoidance. It's avoiding the necessary conversation that needs to happen. It's avoidance. It's avoidance, right? So now, in all those things, you feel justified. They all make sense. Whether you're frozen, whether you're learning and clicking new things, whether you're distracted inside existing client work, or you're inventing more services, all of those things sound very, very smart when you justify them to yourself. When it's you talking to yourself, they sound really smart, really appropriate. I'm doing business. All sounds great. But when you take one more step back in your business and you look at what's happening with your overall business, it stresses you. You know there are gaps. So we must fill the gap. We can't leave the gap and expect the business to remain healthy. We've got to fill the gap. Okay. Oh, I've got one more. Forgot one. Got one more. Here is number 5 of what you do when you're afraid to sell. You continue to what you will call qualify. I got to qualify more clients. And so what does that mean? So you systemize and you automate. So you create more systems, right? More funnels, more automations, more step-by-step things. Hook this software to that software, tie it to this software, double down with this software, Zapier, automate, autoresponder, click funnels, da 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 da. Right? You do all of that. And you do all that. You create more video sequences. You do all that because you're trying to qualify people. Because I only talk to qualified prospects. And so while you're speaking in that voice to yourself, you automate more things. But really, what are you doing? What happens practically is you've jammed your business full of stuff. You've jammed your business full of technology that becomes increasingly difficult to manage. It's hard to measure. It's hard to manage. How do I know? Because I got the same stuff in my business, right? And I aggressively cut that extra junk out. There are these periods where I take things in, and then I aggressively start to chop things out and cut them out, because most of the automation stuff, most of the automation stuff that is pushed to us as must to have is unnecessary. Let me say it one more time. Most of the stuff that's pushed to you as must to have automation is unnecessary. So it's yelled at you, gotta have, but practically day to day inside your business, it's not needed. In fact, it gets in the way, but it feels productive because you're qualifying. This is your qualification process. And all you're doing is making a mess of your existing business activity, right? It doesn't serve you. So let's go one step further here. So now let's continue with the conversation and looking towards thinking about this differently. So there are two main approaches when I talk to people, when I work with people, when I see all the information that's available out there. There's two main approaches being offered to you. I think they're both wrong. Just flat out. I think they're both wrong. One is the fearless approach. So this is someone that says, talk to everybody. This is, every lead's a good lead. Every lead deserves to be closed. Always be closing. If you've heard that phrase before, ABC, if you heard that acronym before, right? Sell, close. You may have worked in an environment like this. You may have told other folks to behave this way. You may have hired people who think this way. Fearless, right? In other words, just put a warm body in front of me and I'll take care of the rest. Just show me a lead and I'll show you a sale. Just give me a person. I'll talk them. And so one version of this is kind of the used car salesman, right? So, and we've all had this experience where someone just talks you to death, and they just they're always trying to get you to buy it now. Why won't you buy it now? You should buy it now. Buy it. That's version one of this fearless approach. But there's another version of this fearless approach, and that's the consummate teacher. So this person doesn't talk as much at first, but this person listens just long enough to understand the problem facing the potential client, and then they roar. And then they just, I mean, they launch and they start to explain. Is this you? They start to explain and explain and explain and explain and explain. Then they explain and explain and explain and explain and explain. Then they explain and explain and explain and explain and explain. And he's fearless. That's the point I'm trying to make to you. This is the fearless approach to selling, right? It's what. Okay, there's fearless. The other side here is fearful. So these are the people who have been victimized by either the used car salesman version or the teacher version, right? And they've had that moment of just being talked at for so long that they can't see straight. So they do not want any part of that conversation. They don't want to do it at all. And they take the exact extreme approach. And it's just very hands-off, whatever you'd like to do. I'm just going to just listen to what it is that you're doing. That sounds really cool. But what ends up happening in this version of this conversation is you become the punching bag. So as you're so hands off and you just because you don't want to be rude and you don't want to interrupt and you do that whole I'm not trying to be aggressive thing. And while you're doing all of that, the other person is leaning and leaning and leaning, and then the next thing you know, you should have sold a service for $5,000 or $10,000, and instead you sold it for $250 because they beat you up on price. Or you should have sold it for $5,000 or $10,000 and done 4 main objectives or 4 main deliverables. But by the time you get beat up so much, you're doing 19 things. So you're still charging the $5,000, $10,000 or $10,000, but you're doing 40 other things that you never planned to do, right? You become the punching bag. Neither approach works. Not in their extremes, they don't. There's got to be something you can do in the middle where you can listen appropriately, but also maintain your authority. There's got to be a way to have the conversations where you can listen appropriately, but also maintain your authority. Let's continue. When I talk about sales calls with my clients, when we work together inside the program, when I work with my clients, we don't call them sales calls. We call them conversations, because that's what's supposed to happen. It's 2 people, 2 adults who are supposed to converse. It's supposed to be a conversation. That's what it's actually supposed to be, right? So couple of headlines here while I was preparing for this, right? The person you're talking to is not a lead. They're a person. So, I need more leads. I want to generate more leads. What? Like, who wants to be generated? Are you a lead? Do you want to be generated? Like, if you talk to people like leads, you're gonna have trouble getting good response. If you think about people like leads, you're gonna have trouble getting good response. What you're after are more conversations. Your best client is desperate for a good conversation. Aren't you desperate for a good conversation? Wouldn't you love a good conversation with someone that's helpful? An actual conversation, not a sales pitch, not a sales call, but a legitimate conversation. I mean, it's a human thing, right? So, but there's a switch you got to turn. They're not leads, they're people. So talk to them like people. There's nothing you can say, nothing you should say that tricks someone into a sale. So again, kind of classic training, you got to learn psychology so you can more or less manipulate people. Say more of this, less of that, do this, do that, buy. As if you could mechanically create, a sale. Now, can you talk someone into a sale? Yes, you can. Yes, you can. You can talk someone into a sale. But the people you talk into a sale are terrible clients. You know this because you felt this already. You probably have done it. You probably have talked someone into a sale before. And the moment they become a client, they become wild and crazy, and you don't like working with them because they shouldn't have been a client in the first place. So yes, you can learn sales psychology and openings and closings and you can do all that. But what you'll find is that there are too many clients in your business that you don't like, and all they do is keep you from doing the other thing you'd like to do. They end up becoming stop signs, not go signs, right? Um, you are not as important as you think. So you and your infinite expertise and your wonderful wisdom, you're a smart person. That's not the issue. But bringing all that intelligence to the conversation gets in the way. It gets in the way of the conversation you'd rather have because you're too focused on selling on offering what it is you've got to offer. Um, on the flip, if you are less comfortable having these kinds of conversations, you're so afraid to make a mistake that you don't engage the way you're supposed to engage. So you're so fearful, so standoffish, so reserved that you don't actively engage the way a person or a human would engage, right? Gets in the way. So Lynn says, "What? I got." What are you reacting to, Lynn? So folks can know what I'm laughing at. Um, yeah. So you just are not as important as you think, period. You personally, you individually, you just aren't. You just aren't. Okay. So um, um, you bring you bring more junk to this conversation than you realize. And this is data, insight I'm bringing to you from working with other real people, people like you. These are the kinds of things that are getting in people's way that keep them from having the kind of conversation they actually want to have. Things like, Lynn was laughing, by the way, because I called out the fact that she wasn't that important. Right? That's what she was reacting at, right? No, you individually, you personally are not that important, right? And what I'm describing is how and why, right? So um um there's stuff that you bring to the conversation, your fear, your worry, your anxiety about closing a new client, your fear of being embarrassed. There's so many more here, but I think if this resonates, you know what I'm talking about. There's stuff, there's expectations, there's stuff that you bring to the conversation that gets in the way. Look at Lynn. Lynn says bringing junk. This is where we get messed up, talking too much and not listening enough. Absolutely. Right? There's all kinds of behavior that stems from this. I'm trying to, kind of make it academic here. But for most people, when they're having these sales calls, they're a mess. They're an absolute mess. And so you hang up the phone, it feels like a mess and etc. But let me continue here. Um, um, Last note here about this idea of sales calls versus conversations. So I'm still on 7 here. I'm still on 7 sales calls versus conversations. Bottom line here, if you bring armor to the conversation, so this idea of sales calls, we got to close people, right? So let me get my armor, right? Let me I got my bracelets on, I got my my suit of armor on, got my helmet on, because I got to go in here and have a sales call. It's time for a sales call, right? If that's how you think about sales calls, when you show up to that call, whether it's on the phone or you show up to that meeting in person, and you show up with the sales call face, well, what clue have you given your prospective client? They have to go to war too, because you showed them it was time to fight. So you fight, they got to fight. I mean, right? Like they can't get beat up in the meeting. So now it's two people who you've declared war. My point here is that you've declared war. You brought this stuff to the meeting. Again, I repeat, these are things that my clients actively deal with. Sometimes they say it out loud and they admit it. Sometimes they don't. And it takes a couple of conversations where you realize, oh my gosh, I'm the person driving this meeting. The meeting went off the rails because I did something. And that's what I'm trying to highlight that for you now. There are things that you do. There's attitudes that you bring that specifically change how the conversation goes. Okay? So now, so now let's continue here. Let's continue here. Let's talk about script versus agenda. Have you ever used a sales call script? Of course you have, because any good sales training is going to offer you a script, right? So, okay, all right. Your here's the thing. Here's the thing. As you've learned, your client's needs are not scripted. Your your client does not behave in a scripted way. So you got your trusty sales call script, and you're moving down and then you ask, and then you say, and then you do, right? And you're praying, hoping, expecting your client to neatly navigate themselves down this script. It doesn't work, y'all. You know it doesn't work. You know it doesn't work. But you buy a sales script because this sales script is better than that sales script. And there you are. There you are. Working your way. It's a joke, man. It's a joke because your best client doesn't behave in a scripted way. They're not going to navigate themselves down a sales script. Furthermore, don't you just feel weird communicating in that robotic way? Ask this question, then ask that question, and then say this, and then say it. Isn't that just weird? It's weird. Okay. Now, I hope Joel is still on the line here. So I put a screenshot of Joel's question up front, right? Because Joel right now is twiddling his thumbs because he's waiting for the answer to his question. He's like, Alze, I asked about prospecting, and you're talking about sales. Alze, I told you I'm great with the or I do okay with the sales calls. Alze, what about this prospecting thing? Joel says he's here. By the way, I'm picking on Joel. He's still here. Right. But but there are folks, it might not be Joel, but I know there are folks who have seen content like this and they're like, but I asked about prospecting, right? Tell me about prospecting. Hang on. This will all make sense in just a moment. All right. So script versus agenda, right? I'm still on number 8. Script versus agenda. Here's the thing, right? So I've made the point. I'm hammering scripts because scripts are useless. Scripts are useless. But if it's two adults having a conversation, then that conversation should have an agenda. There are bullet points. There are highlights. There are main ideas. There are some major questions that should be answered or things to be addressed, right? The conversation should still have some scope. It should still have some direction. So an agenda is appropriate, but an agenda and a script are not the same. They're not the same. Your job is to have an agenda, is to have an intention for the conversation you're about to have, or the conversation that you're currently having, right? But you need to have a direction versus a step-by-step expectation, and you've got to be okay with having a conversation that follows that agenda, so the client can ebb and flow through this conversation, so you can ebb and flow in the conversation, so the both of you can ebb and flow in the conversation and figure out what needs to be done. But if you're counting on a sales script, or if you've outsourced sales work and they are counting on a sales script, I guess your best client just doesn't communicate in that way. All right. So moving on. So how do you know? All right, so I'm talking about these conversations, right? And I'm saying you should be prepared for a conversation. You should see it as a conversation. You should think about it as a conversation and eliminate this sales call thinking, right? So now we're at number 9 here, right? How do you know when you've had a good conversation? So I'm saying, if I'm doing it my way, whatever way you're doing what you're doing right now, and Alze is talking about this conversation thing, right? How do I know, bottom line, how do I know whether I'm in camp A or camp B? Okay, so let me give you a few thoughts here. When you know you're having better conversations about your business. Okay. Number 1, it feels like a conversation. That's what it feels like. It feels like two people actually conversing. When you talk to a friend of yours or to a family member, right? And just it's just two of you just kind of just talking back and forth, and it's got this natural rhythm to it. That's how it should feel when you talk to your clients, to prospective clients or current clients. It should feel like an actual conversation. What's a 50-50 split, right? Where you talk, they talk, you talk. That is that right? You like that? It should feel like an actual conversation, not a play or a movie, right? Where everyone has scripted lines. Okay. If you've had a conversation with someone, you will learn something. You learn something. You talk to another adult, another professional, another human being, and you engage for 30 minutes, 45 minutes, an hour, or whatever it was. You're going to learn something. When you're on sales calls, do you learn anything? No, you're reading your script. You're reading your script, and you're trying to drive them to a sale. You're not learning anything, right? You're just driving, right? So you'll learn something when you converse with people. You actually learn something. Third here is that you'll have notes because you actually care about what the other person is saying. You'll stop yourself and you'll take notes. That's what happens when you converse, right? Because there's exchange, legit exchange happening. You'll have notes. You'll have notes. Here's the biggest one, right? Biggest one, kind of to give it a bottom line. When you hang up the phone, you aren't shocked or upset. I can't tell you how many times I've heard conversations where people hang up the phone and they're shocked at what happened. I closed a sale. Like somebody actually bought. I've never sold for that much, etc. Right? That's what's supposed to happen. Two adults sharing space on the phone. One has a problem. One has a solution. A sale is supposed to take place. That's actually what's supposed to happen. Shouldn't be shocking. It should just happen, right? So, but right now, you're thinking, oh, the sales script worked because I got them into a sale. See, see, you're shocked at that. You're surprised. You shouldn't be surprised. It should be the decision to buy or not buy should be the obvious conclusion as a result of that conversation. It should be the obvious conclusion, whether it's a yes or a no. It should be the obvious conclusion. It shouldn't be a shock. The other version here, the other part of this is you shouldn't be upset either. So when you hang up the phone, you shouldn't be cursing and spitting and kicking up dust because the prospect was this or the prospect was that, or they were too smart or too dumb or too rich or too poor or too tall or too short, whatever you got to say about the other person. It shouldn't have all that friction in it. You just shouldn't be upset. If two adults had a conversation, it shouldn't hurt like that. Now, sales calls hurt because you were trying to twist them. They didn't want to be twisted, and then there's your friction. But if you have an honest conversation, again, the yes or no decision is a natural byproduct of the conversation. It's obvious what to do next. It's just obvious. Life is easier this way. Life is simply easier this way. All right. So now, sanity check here. Sanity check. Before I move into Q&A, sanity check. Questions, comments, concerns about what I've shared today, right? So I'm making this point today that people have a fear of selling, and perhaps it's you. You've got a fear of selling. You've got some trepidation, some concern around selling. And all of the content that I'm offering you today is to help you reframe, rethink about how selling should work, what selling actually is. And I'm trying to take all the psychology and manipulation out of it. And I'm trying to take out a lot of the mental junk that you may have associated with selling. And so questions, comments, concerns about that, post them, whatever it is, and we'll deal, right? We'll deal. So Joel had a question, right? So Joel had a question earlier. I flashed it up here, and his thing was, how do I prospect? How do I begin to have these conversations? So here's the thing about prospecting, and here's where a lot of people break down. When they approach prospecting, the goal of prospecting for the incorrect goal of prospecting is to close a sale. So people go, when they start thinking about prospecting, where to prospect, who to prospect, how to prospect, when they're going through all those details, what they're thinking about is, I need to close a sale. And I'm saying to you, if that is your thought process, you have broken your prospecting efforts before you've even gotten started. Where do I go to find a sale? Where do I go to close clients? If that's the way you're thinking about prospecting, you're going to have a lot of trouble prospecting. You're going to have a lot of trouble marketing in a way to get people to interact and engage with your company. Number two about prospecting is that the second inappropriate goal people have when they prospect is that they're trying to get a sales call. Now, I just spent whatever it was, 30 minutes talking about how sales calls are a broken mechanic. But in your mind, if you're thinking, I want to get someone on the phone so I can pitch my services, I want to get someone on the phone so I can explain to them what I do. If that's the way you're thinking about prospecting, you are going to have real trouble prospecting. Your prospective client, in Joel's situation, is doctors. There are a lot of people pitching services to doctors, and doctors do not want to get on the phone and be pitched to. Nobody does. But in this case, we know that doctors don't, because doctors don't speak the language of marketing. In general, doctors aren't good marketers. They're very good doctors. They're not very good marketing professionals. So you want to talk about all of what your marketing stuff does, and they simply don't care. And the longer you talk, the less interested they become. Blah. So prospecting has a completely different flow to it when you're honestly trying to have more conversations with prospective clients. It's a completely different thought process. Now, somebody is watching this video right now and a light bulb just went off, because when you think about prospecting in terms of having better conversations, or simply having conversations at all, other opportunities begin to come to mind. Oh, I know. I can talk to so-and-so and have a good conversation. I can go here and have a good conversation. These folks will talk to me. Those folks will talk to me. Now that the goal is a conversation and not a sales call, now that the goal is a conversation and not an immediate closed client, then all of a sudden it becomes more, it's an easier goal to achieve once you allow your brain to make the shift, right? Okay, now we'll go one level deeper in that in the conversation of prospecting, or how to create more conversations. When you reach out, as you reach out, your job is to identify the potential problem facing your client. And if you've seen any content of mine, I talk about problem solution all the time. I'm a broken record about it. And I keep talking about it because people keep screwing it up. And then they wonder why things don't work. Things don't work. It's because you didn't get problem solution right. So when you reach out to people, you are saying some version of, if you have this problem, we have this solution. If you have this problem, we can take that problem away. We can remove the pain you're feeling because you have that problem. Gosh, right? So, Joel, if you need mechanical help with prospecting, right? So right now I'm just kind of talking to Joel, or anybody whose situation is like Joel's, right? If you're having issues creating more conversations, there is a strategic element of this you cannot dodge. You cannot duck. You can send out 100 emails, 1,000 emails, and still not get good response because you're just not doing it the right way. Something about the way you've thought about it is broken. And Joel and anybody else, if you copy and paste what you saw from somebody else, trouble. If you copy and paste with some template that so-and-so downloaded, or what you bought from so-and-so, trouble, because a lot of those, they go scripts. We're back to scripts, and just do these three things, and money falls from the sky. It just doesn't work that way. So um, um, getting prospecting right is a thing. It's a thing. If you know how to do it, do it. Close out this video and do it. Why are you still listening to this video? Go do it. If you know what you're doing, go do it. But if you need help with the effort of prospecting and prospecting right, that's why a program exists. So I've got a coaching program. It's designed to help you create a better agency, and lead generation, client acquisition is a part of what's inside uh, the program. So there's a very elegant method that we use. It puts you in conversation with people, and it shows you how to turn conversations into closed clients. And it's the kind of thing where no one feels yucky at the end. So if if it's if you want to keep downloading templates, you're welcome to do that. The internet's full of them. But if it's time to actually build a system you can count on, a process you can count on for client acquisition, that's why the program exists. And there's a training, a link you can click up, down, left, right, somewhere around this thing. Watch that training. It explains how the program works, and if it makes sense, we can talk about having you join the program. Okay. So any other questions or comments, please let me know. There were a couple of questions that came in earlier, and I am triple checking to make sure I know what those are, so I can address them while I am live. So far, so good. All right. So a question came in from Nelson, and Nelson asked, "How do you focus? Your time to keep your business separate from your personal?" Really important question. So I could probably do a whole thing on this idea of boundaries and how to separate your time. The truth that I learn as I'm serving more and more people, the truth that I'm learning is that for my clients, their lifestyle is as important as their business goals, or their lifestyle. Um, you got it, Joel. Joel says thanks. You got it, sir. Um, your lifestyle is as important to you as your business goals are. So um, there is pressure, right? In fact, one thing I say to my clients is, your business can be an excuse for some very bad personal habits. In the spirit of growing your business, being in business, running a business, you can justify some very poor personal habits. I know this because I paid the cost already. I've had the back issues from sitting in chairs for hours at a time. I've had the I've gained. I was 20 pounds overweight. I've already paid the cost. So believe me or don't believe me, I've already paid the cost of being completely out of balance when it comes to my business efforts. And so there are things you got to do inside your business to draw these lines. And what you'll find to Nelson and everybody else, what you'll find is that when you draw those brighter lines, when you draw a bright line of boundaries between this is when and how I do this is when and how I do that, you get more value out of both. When you draw a brighter boundary line, you get more value from your business, and you get more value from your life. I don't know why. Maybe I'll study it later. But from my own life and from the lives of my clients, I'm seeing it come true, is that they are getting exponential value by being even more deliberate with how their business functions, and their life changes as a result. So how do you do it? I've made this point before, and the simplest, most mechanical thing I can say right now is that your business has three core systems. It's got client acquisition, client service, client retention. Those three systems should live inside your business. They should be transparent. They should be obvious. You should see them, and you should be running those systems every single day. And so, if you see your business as those series of systems, then you focus on those. That's what you do. You don't do anything outside of that. You focus on your core systems. You let the money, you let the revenue, you let the clients churn appropriately, because you've got appropriate systems. But all that smart stuff I just said is harder than it sounds. It's harder than it sounds. structuring these things is harder than it sounds. Getting the discipline of these things is harder than it sounds. And that's why a program exists, to help you draw these boundaries so you can create what you actually want to create. So if that's of interest to you, there's a link up, down, left, right. You can click that link, watch the training, explains how the program works. If it makes sense, you and I can talk about getting you in the program. So, okay. Anything else? Anything else today? Anything else today? So far, so good. Looks like I'm making final checks. I'm making final checks. Well, where did my? All right, good to go. Good to go, folks. All right. Has anybody noticed that the technology is holding up? Right, like it's stable. Yes, yes, it's stable. All right. So, good people. Thank you so much for your time today, your patience today. Thank you so much for interacting today. Indeed. I'll talk to you soon. Okay. Take care.